How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. Starting over in Marvel, we have Ultimate Black Panther issue number 3. Now, this one's exploring a little bit more about some of the ancient cultures alongside of the Black Panther inside of Wakanda. Killmonger seems to be on the pulse with what all that entails. And so he's educating T'Challa in this issue that there's another power source. There's something else magical, mysterious that the Illuminati in this Ultimate Universe is after, and they had to figure out like what that means, what they're going to do with it, how do they access this power, what can they learn from it. So this is a pretty cool issue about, you know, those two basically sitting together, just trying to hash it out, trying to figure out what the next steps are, and we get introduced to this new mysterious cave, right, that has magical roots way deeper than what we ever knew before. So that was pretty cool. We get our proper Storm introduction in here as well. I don't think that was too much of a secret leading into this issue. She has a really cool showcase of some of her powers. Looks great in here. Pretty cool issue. I would say this is it's a pretty slow issue, to be honest with you. Besides a couple little random conversations with Okoye and Shuri, there's really not a whole lot else going on inside this issue. We're left with a lot of questions towards the end. Not a bad issue, kind of slow. Brings in some more revelations, I would say. We're going to be heading in a pretty exciting direction, I think. Issue number 3, not too bad. What'd you guys think? All right, let's hop over to Avengers Twilight issue number 5. Chip Zdarsky's on this one, and so is Acuna on the art. Outstanding issue, man. If you've been loving what he's been setting up so far inside of Twilight, this is a big battle issue. Everyone's just coming at full force right now. It is so remarkable to see what is going on in here, drawn so well. I love the way this guy does shading and his line work and everything. It's just spectacular to see this kind of a comic come to life, especially since it reminds me so much of like the MCU days where we had giant battle scenes like the battle in New York and stuff like that in the original Avengers. It feels that epic, and it's just so cool that he's able to capture all those moments just so well. We get to see the Red Skull basically come into his own. We see another villain too that he interacts with and he ends up taking out. I'll let you figure that one out on your own, but it's a great collaboration issue with all the different heroes. It's just handled so well, and the art is just perfect inside this book. Non-stop action. All the drama that we've been building up in the previous issues comes to a head in here, and we still have another issue to go after this. So it's really, really cool. The other thing this book really does well is it brings heroes that we were introduced to in the previous issues we thought were out of commission, and it puts them right back in the action. And it's just so cool. It's definitely like a hair-raising kind of a series, and I've been loving it so far. Avengers Twilight, you got to be reading it. What'd you guys think? Let's jump over to DC now with Batman Offworld issue number 4. Offworld being a very appropriate title for this one. He's out in space right now, taking on, I believe, the Black Suns, which is like this gigantic evil corporation or culture or society that basically enslaves different people from all over the place and, puts them to work, right, for their own gains. Now, Batman being pretty much a novice still, he's still within his first year, if I remember correctly, reading inside this book. He's reminiscing that, a year ago I put the cape and cowl on, now I'm millions of light years away from Earth. He's taking on this evil group just because they threatened Earth in the past, and now he knows he wasn't formidable enough to take care of them back then. Now he's learning all the tricks of the trade. He's working with other assassins out there in space, trying to figure out the different weaknesses of all these different species, right? And so he's working with someone right now who's kind of fallen for Batman, for Bruce Wayne. And it'll be interesting to see how that ends up because, we don't hear of this person right now. So whatever happens to that person. But Batman's taking this really personally. He knows that they're going to come back to Earth one day and wipe him out. He doesn't want to see these atrocities throughout the galaxy. And he has to do whatever he can do to, take this fight right to them. There is a new villain introduced inside this issue who I'm really excited to see mature and trying to see that like last battle between Batman and this character. This villain has a familiar archetype, but it's a different variation, and I think it's going to be really cool to see what happens in there. So Batman Offworld, if you haven't been reading this book because it's another Batman book, I would say give it a shot because it's been really exciting. It puts Batman in a new place. We haven't seen him before, taking on some new threats, and he's allying himself with some pretty cool characters as well. So definitely give this one a shot if you haven't yet. Jumping over to Tom King's Wonder Woman issue number 8, definitely better than the previous issue, the whole Batman birthday issue. This book here is very, very heavy-handed though. If you remember in the previous issue, issue number 6, Wonder Woman finally went head to head with like this Legion of Doom that our tyrannical leader has put together, and it didn't really go according to plan. Now she's at the mercy of this dude right now, and he's essentially torturing her with the lasso of lies, making her live in this dream state where she's completely subordinate to Steve, and they live in this fairy tale land and things like that. But she has this like Themyscirian voice in the back of her head, like the voice of her mother, trying to help her push through, realize that this is not exactly the real world and she needs to overcome all this. But it's extremely difficult because this lasso, of course, is so powerful, right? And it's the opposite of the lasso of truth. And so we're having this really uneasy, unnerving conversation between the two of them, you know, like this epitome of evil, this epitome of like the patriarchy, right? Just kind of completely dominating Wonder Woman in this situation. So it's definitely like the yin and the yang going at each other right now. But, you know, in classic Diana fashion, she, you know, musters the strength to overcome whatever obstacles are in her way and really kind of shows her strength in those moments. Definitely a better issue. And in classic Wonder Woman fashion, we do have a backup story with John and Trinity and Damian, which I'm really, really loving. I love all these backup stories. It's just so cool. Apparently she has some kind of paper she needs to write. And so Damian thinks it's a good idea to send her literally back in time. John comes back from some emergency. They, of course, have their little banter back and forth. And, you know, Damian's playing some kind of game on his phone, and John's going over all these worst case scenarios about how she can possibly just mess up the past and how we wouldn't even perceive the changes because it's going to happen in real time. And it was just so, it's just so, I love the backup stories in this one. Those three are awesome. I can't wait to see what they actually do with Trinity when she grows up. It's just going to be a really fun ride. So Wonder Woman issue number 8, way better than the last issue, and directly comes off of what happens in issue number 6. So not too bad. What'd you guys think? All right, next we're going to go into the Hellblazer universe. We have John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, issue number 4 from Cy Spurrier, and we have Campbell and Belair on the art and letters as well. So I will say that as I'm reading this series right here, this series that we're in, it's not exactly clear why they're in the places that they are, taking care of whatever local threats are going on. There's a overall theme that we pulled forward from the previous run, which is John Constantine is actually dead, and he needs to figure out like what to do about that. Now, Dream has actually came to him and sent him on a little side quest, so he's bringing along all of his friends, resurrecting Swamp Thing, things like that. But they're going around the United States right now, and I'm having a hard time following the threads or the rationale as to why they're landing in certain places. And I think that has to do with they get so enveloped into the local troubles. For instance, they're in this small town right now that has a really dark, shady past. There are some football players that sexually assaulted this young girl, and there's a giant cover up in the city and stuff like that. So there's this like rot, right, that's in the city, and it's like emanating out and it's hurting the different people in the city. And so John's aware of that, and he ends up talking to some of the locals and performing some magic and trying to like root out that evil and whatnot. But at the same time, he's also trying to like help Swamp Thing become more whole. He's trying to figure out his issue when he's dead. He's trying to find the grains of sand that are everywhere. Now, I will say, even though the plot's pretty convoluted and confusing and you don't quite know exactly why things are the way they are, I will say it's still a really interesting read. It's drawn really well. There's this like darkness to it. There's this grittiness to it that still keeps me connected to all these characters and still wants me to read more, right? And so there's still that connection there. I will say, but the plots get a little bit muddy from here to there, but still a really interesting read, I think. Let me know if you guys are reading it down below. All right, Batman, Superman, World's Finest, issue number 26. Now, I fell off of this book for, I don't know, maybe like 10 issues, something like that. And I didn't know why. So I went ahead and jumped back into this. I didn't know where we're going to be landing, but I think we have the Mitzpikalik. That's what I say, and it's probably wrong, right? Who the hell knows how to say that thing? But we have this big team up right now where all those different beings like him are invading Earth right now. And not only do the heroes have their like companion, right? Their mystical companion, but so do the villains. And so now we're in the situation where we have all of our villains teaming up with their version of this character, and they got to figure out what to do. And so I think that was really cool. Now, the art, obviously, from Mora is amazing. Wade's doing a great job telling the story. I feel like this is going to be kind of like a throwaway bridge between another story, right? So if you're jumping into World's Finest, this probably isn't necessary reading, but it was still kind of fun for me to jump in here because I'll be ready for whatever the arc is coming out of this. Lots of magic users in here, some pretty cool displays of power, some mashups of power, things like that. Really great humor and everything. So another great issue of World's Finest. Even though I was gone for a while, I'm back in. I'll be ready for the next arc. Did you guys read it? What'd you think? All right, we're going to go over to Image Comics. We have Sam in Twitch Case Files issue number 2. I'm just picking this up because Kodransky was listed as a creator on here doing some of the art, and that's basically why I've been picking this one up. Now, compositionally, this book is very different than any other comic book you would really see. First off, Kodransky does a great job with the composition itself. The lettering and everything is very unconventional as far as I'm concerned, and I didn't necessarily mind it, but I've heard some criticism about it. It's not a direction I would take the book, honestly. If I'm putting a book together, I would definitely do the word balloons, but there's a place for this, and I think it's fun to experiment a little bit and see what's going on. As far as the story goes, I'm not a big Sam and Twitch fan. I read a little bit about them in the Spawn stuff back in the day, but basically they push a case too far, or Sam does, and they both end up getting suspended. And so now this is like the repercussions of this. Like Twitch's family is really upset with him and everything, and they're taking their anger out on them. So like they're kind of at odds right now, and so we don't quite know what we're going to be doing with that relationship going forward. But there's this big homicide case right now that we're trying to understand, and we're bringing in some other detectives and things like that might have some previous experience. And there's some dude out there killing homeless people and whatnot. So like at the end of the day, I didn't really have a great time reading this book, to be honest with you. Issue number 1 was fine enough, but like 2 was less enjoyable than issue number 1. So let me know if you guys are big Sam and Twitch fans. What are you guys thinking about this one down below? Next, we have Parker and Sheridan on Kill Your Darlings issue number 8, the conclusion of this run right here. So if you have not read this one, I recommend a trade read. I think it was a pretty well thought out story and amazing art. So definitely try to, check this one out if you can. Now, just to recap the overall story, we have some witches that were sacrificed or burned at the stake a long time ago. There's some evil magic still around. This young girl has that magic kind of seep into her. Her imagination, which is overproductive anyways, comes to life, and she creates this big fantasy world. And we find out that one of the witches from back in the day has found a way to keep herself alive through like sacrificing her own family, which is totally crazy. And through a series of unfortunate circumstances, these two kind of go head to head. And I thought that was done pretty well. This book right here focuses on, bringing that imagination land to life some more and learning a little bit more about the ropes. Like if I have some witchness stuff inside of me, then I need to figure out how to mature that and like use it to my advantage, right? And take this power right to the source of evil itself. So this is definitely the call to arms issue right here with some surprising twists in it as well. I figured that, some of the characters that end up collaborating together, I didn't really see coming. So that was a really cool thing to see. And the repercussions of that collaboration is what's specifically interesting to me. So there's a lot of cool stuff that can still happen inside of this book if they continue it going forward. I haven't heard any news, but I'd be down for a volume 2 of this for sure. So I'd highly recommend this one if you'd like to see like reality mixed with like a fantasy element and you throw some magic on top of that. Really, really cool book. If you haven't read the single issues, pick it up in trade. I think it's well worth it. Let me know if you did down below. All right, Joshua Williamson on Cobra Commander issue number 4. And I feel like I say this every time this book comes out. Whenever the issue comes out, it's my favorite one of the series. Issue number 4 is no exception to that. Of course, we have Cobra fighting the Dreadnoks. He was being interrogated by them as to like why he was there. Cobra's looking for some Energon energy that he feels in the area sent from Cobra Law. He's with the Enforcer that busted out in the last issue and ripped apart the Dreadnoks, which was insane. And so this is like the next part, right? Cobra actually finds a secret scientist that's been doing some very interesting experiments on the energy source that he's been sensing in the area. And we get to see kind of like the repercussions of Cobra finalizing this mission, like finishing up his mission, right? Is Enforcer really on his side? What does he have an ulterior motive? Is he like a double agent kind of a thing? Cobra, again, with his ingenuity and everything, really steps it up here. The action is absolutely incredible. Molina's doing a great job on the art, I would say. It's a really good complementary piece to Transformers with Daniel Warren Johnson's art, and now we have Corona on the art. It's a really there's a lot of similarities between those with like the automatopoeia, the fast pacedness of everything, like the kinetic energy, the scribble line work and everything. The coloring is really bright and vibrant. So they're doing a good job of like marrying this universe together, I would say, especially with like the pacing of everything. This book does have a couple more issues to go. I'm going to be sad to see it go, to be honest with you, but Cobra Commander, one of my favorite books this week. Did you guys read it? What'd you think? All right, next up we have Something Epic issue number 9 from Kodransky. This was one of my favorite books of the series so far. I'm loving the main character in here and basically like her understanding of being an epic, which is a little bit different than somebody else, especially in the first arc of this series. He uses his imagination. He can like draw and he can just use his imagination and things will come to life. She has a little different interpretation of this. So we start to learn that like epics have different ways of using that power to their advantage. She's really good with words. She can use words to her advantage, and she's learned a whole lot over the course of time of like how to navigate and how to infiltrate stories and meet these like fictional characters and things like that. And she really puts that power on display when we essentially go into hell to talk to all these demons and like Mount Olympus type gods and whatnot. So we have the death of another famous fictional character or Greek god in this issue. I'll let you figure it out. And we're trying to understand the connection between that character and a lot of the other characters, you know, in Hell, over in Mount Olympus and everything. So we get this just amazing artwork just depicting these different environments, which is just like the exact opposite, right? You go to Mount Olympus and then you're going down to the depths of hell and like talking to essentially like Hades himself. So like, how do you balance all that? And of course, he does a great job doing that. We get some powers on display here, and we go into exactly what that means for her to be an epic. And we get an understanding that obviously it's much different than our previous characters. We get some great characterizations as well. Like, these are characters that everybody knows and everybody has like a mental image of, but like he just does such a great job of like putting all that together while also like balancing this complex story and these new characters. So like you immediately feel engaged with the characters, you love the environment they're in, you're with them on their mission, you understand where they're going, and everything makes sense. Just really, really great job in issue number 9. Definitely check this one out if you haven't. Next, we have Zoe Thorogood on Hex Slash Back to School issue number 4, the conclusion of this series right here. And I will say that overall, I really enjoyed the series. I like the parallels between like this and like an X-Men kind of a thing, where we basically have the viewpoint of like a Jubilee kind of a character going to the mansion, seeing like the head of the mansion, right? Seeing the other mutants or the other people like her and how they actually interact and what their power sets are and what their personalities are like, and trying to make that all work. But at the same time, trying to take out this like serial killer or this demon monster that's been ripping apart families and like mutilating people. The artwork is great because she's just a great artist, and she obviously pours a lot of emotion and everything into everything that she does. And so that was handled really well. I will say that this book here, the conclusion of the story, has more of a tell me than show me kind of an ending, to be honest with you. So it does abruptly end. I would say there's a few pages dedicated to where the characters want to go with their lives, you know what I mean? So like they develop these relationships and they want this ideal future, right? They want to leave all this carnage behind them. There's some flashy moments right here, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like a Days of Future Past, like nightmare hellish landscape. And so what I think this book needed was it needed a 5th issue. I wanted to drag out some of that possession that our main character goes through, who ends up kind of like ruining the day, right? So like I wish there was a 5th issue to this. I feel like she could have done a lot of great stuff with that if they gave her a 5th issue, kind of stretched it out a little bit. But very, very charming book, packed with emotion, character driven for sure, familiar type story, but had enough uniqueness to it to make it something really cool. So definitely Hex Slash Back to School. Definitely recommend reading this one, and I hope we get another volume from her. There's some hints to that towards the end. Hopefully we get it. Let me know if you read it down below. All right, next book from Dark Horse is Helen of Wyndhorn issue number 2, written by Tom King, and we have Evely and Lopes on here as well. So the first issue was like my pick of the week, my pick of the month. Absolutely loved it. It was like the perfect combination of interesting characters, interesting setting, characters that you just like immediately understood. We have a young girl who's been estranged from her family, kind of living on her own. She's 16, she's at bars, she's smoking cigarettes, getting into trouble. Somebody has hired this woman who we get introduced to in the first issue to go find her, bring her back to the family mansion, the family manor, and, you know, kind of get reacquainted with the family. And so that's exactly what we have going on here. We meet the grandfather in a really dramatic way at the end of issue number 1, basically like slaying this giant monster who's been haunting the dreams of Helen this entire time. And we get to see a little bit more about him and some of the interactions with the family, or lack thereof, really. He's basically, I think he's kind of sizing her up right now. We go months at a time where he's slowly becoming more like in their presence, right? And kind of like feeling her out, noticing what she's like and how her personality is, maybe even testing her a little bit, seeing what kind of like power she has within inside of her. And there's some hints here and there about some kind of like latent ability that she might have as she's interacting with her grandfather some more. This book is beautifully drawn. There's still a lot of mystery and things like that in here. We have a mysterious father who died in a way we don't quite understand. We have a grandfather who's looking at a granddaughter thinking that she can like be his sidekick almost and go on these adventures. And I think this, you know, this book is going to be really something special, I think. And I can't wait to see where it goes from there. Beautiful artwork, great story, engaging characters, just really, really fun. So Helen of Wyndhorn issue number 2, one of my favorite books of the week. But guys, that's everything I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.